my friends, welcome. I'm so excited about today's video. Can you tell? We are kicking off Christmas crafting season for 2025. Can you believe it? Oh my goodness. Today I have gathered some of my favorite cozy farmhouse DIYs and they look so high end. Let me show you how I make them. We're going to give this sleigh a makeover. I got it a couple of years ago from a thrift store for $2 and it's been in my shed. It's kind of grimy, yucky. We give it a good scrub down, sanded it down a bit, and then I'm going to give it one coat of Waverly's chalk paint in the color plaster just to have a nice fresh base to start with. The color paint I'm going to apply next is Real Brown. It's from Apple Barrel, and this is a gloss paint. Now, y'all, I did not make a wise decision here. This was a big old hot streaky mess. I don't know if it's because of the quality of the paint or that I'm putting it over chalk paint, just not sure, but it just wasn't good. So I went ahead and finished painting the sleigh and then let it dry for quite a while. Came back and put a second layer. You guessed it, same old big hot streaky mess. I was like, dear Lord, am I going to have to sand all this paint off? I let it sit overnight and completely dry and came back the next day and I went over it with Apple Barrel's Nutmeg and it looked a whole lot better. It was still a little bit streaky in some places and I still wanted that glossy shine, like Santa's sleigh. So I went back over it with another layer, you guessed it, of the gloss Real Brown, and it looked good. I got the shine that I'm looking for. Again, it's a little bit streaky in some places, but that's okay. I can work with that. For the rails, we're going to use this beautiful gold paint, and this is from Amazon, and it's very thin, so I did have to apply about 3 layers in order to achieve the color that I wanted. We're going to take our little sled to the next level and make it look so high end and luxurious by adding this faux fur all the way around the outside of the sled. I'm just using hot glue to attach it, and as you can see, I already did the other side just to save a little bit of time. Now, I will tell you, when you first cut it, it does shed, but as I was working with it and attaching it to the sled, it did not shed until I got to the other end and had to cut it again, and then I had more shedding. So if you do buy this or use it, just be aware that when you first cut it, it will shed on you. But other than that, it is just absolutely gorgeous. We're going to make some gifts for our sleigh. So I'm going to use 2 dice from the Dollar Tree. I gave them 2 coats of Waverly's white chalk paint and then a small box that's a little bit bigger than the 2 dice, and then we've gone ahead and wrapped them with some wrapping paper from the Dollar Tree. We're going to decorate our little gift boxes, and this beautiful gold ribbon is from Walmart. I found it over in the section where they have all their little miniature ornaments and decorations there. It's so pretty. Not a lot of ribbon on these spools, so I did buy about 3 or 4 spools if I remember correctly, but it's so gorgeous, and I'm just going to wrap that around the white gift wrap, and then I will put this beautiful sheer green ribbon on top of that, and that's from the Dollar Tree. For the 2 smaller gift boxes, we're going to use this sheer green ribbon from the Dollar Tree, and then on top of that, we're going to add the tiny white ribbon, and this is from Walmart. Now, I will mention that using hot glue made my boxes a little uneven on the bottom, but it's not going to matter for this because I'm setting it in a bed of greenery in the sleigh. But if you need these to sit flat on a surface, I would probably use double-sided tape to attach the ribbon. We're going to add some sweet little embellishments to the top of our gift boxes. I'm using bits and pieces of greenery, some berries, and little tiny pine cones. These little pine cones came from the Dollar Tree, and off camera I painted them white, and while they were still wet, I just sprinkled them with some very fine glitter because I want the pine cones to glisten like they have freshly fallen snow on them, at least in my mind anyway. But I think they're so beautiful and just adorable. Now, of course, you can decorate the boxes however you choose. You could use a bow instead of the pine cones and greenery, or if you don't care for these colors, you want more festive, bright colors, of course, go for that. But I'm going for a more high-end, elegant look with this project, so I chose these colors. I do want to give a special shout out to the honey for wrapping these little boxes for me, y'all. I stink at wrapping. I use gift bags for everything, so anything that needs to be specially wrapped, he does that in our household. So thank you, honey. I just added some greenery to the bottom of the sled, popped the little presents on top of the greenery, and was finished. And this is just such a beautiful statement piece, at least to me. I think it would be gorgeous as a centerpiece. Put you a couple of candles on either side. So beautiful. Tell me what you think about it. We're making a pizza pan DIY. Haven't done one in a while. Not sure why, but we're going to be making one today. I took it outside and gave it, or attempted to give it a coat of my favorite Rust-Oleum white spray paint. It started raining on me, y'all, so I brought it in. See how splotchy it is? So I just went ahead and went around the inside just a bit with some of my Waverly chalk paint in the color Snow White. And then I'm coming back in with Waverly's chalk paint in Crimson. And I'm just going around the outer edge and then just on the inside of the pizza pan. Now I'm not worrying about being too precise with the red paint on the inside because we're going to be covering the bottom of the pizza pan with one of those self-adhesive wall tiles from the Dollar Tree. Now I want to make sure I cut this tile down to the right size and that it'll fit inside the pizza pan. And I'm going to be using this sign, and this came from the Dollar Tree as well. It fits perfectly in the bottom of a pizza pan from the Dollar Tree. And I'm just going to use it as my template, line it up as best I can, just trace around it, and then I'll use my scissors to cut it out. I want to take a moment to say thank you for subscribing to my channel. I truly appreciate you. I've received so many new subscribers, and to my wonderful returning subscribers, I truly appreciate each and every one of you and the wonderful support that you have been showing my channel through subscribing, your wonderful sweet comments, and I just appreciate it so much. You'll notice as you're trimming this down that the two pieces come apart, so I just throw the back piece away because I have no use for it. And then I'm going to go in and give it 3 coats of the Waverly chalk paint in the color Snow White, and I do let it dry in between each coat. I'm going to cut out the center of the tile, and I'm just using my X-Acto knife. Now I've made sure I've put a brand new blade in here and it's really sharp, and I'm just going to trace around just very carefully. I'm speeding this up so it doesn't take so long, but I just really took my time and just traced along the inside edge of this tile. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing here on the screen. Now to remove the centerpiece, I just very gently pushed on it to make sure that it was completely cut. If you find in any areas that it's still attached, I would use the tip of your X-Acto knife and just kind of go over it. I wouldn't pull on it or tug because this is pretty flimsy and it may tear your tile. For this next step, I'm going to be using the color Antique Gold from Folk Art and a stipple brush. And my intention was just to lightly brush over the raised area, just make them pop out, give them a little more dimension. And as always, I get a little bit heavy-handed. And by the time I finished, to me, it looked muddy and I just was not happy with it. You will see later on that I did go back in off camera with some white paint and really tone the gold back. But as I'm sitting here editing, I'm realizing that I probably should not have done that. Spoiler alert, you'll see where I go back in off camera at the end of the video and make some changes, so stay tuned for that. I'm going to add a layer of Mod Podge to the bottom of the pizza pan and spread it out and let it dry because we're going to be decoupaging this gorgeous napkin right in the center of the pizza pan. And I found my napkin on eBay a couple of years ago. I actually got mine from Napkin World, but I just recently looked and I didn't see anything like this on Napkin World. So I went and typed in just Snowman decoupage napkin, and it brought up one that's very similar to this. Not quite exactly like this one, but very, very similar. And y'all, they have some of the most beautiful napkins on there, and they're just really inexpensive. But anyway, I'm just cutting out one square, making sure I'm removing both of the plies, because this is a 3-ply napkin, so you do want to make sure you remove all of the plies and just use the very top one. Now, I am not going to trim off the excess napkin because that tile is going to cover everything up, so I'm just going to go ahead and center it up as best I can, put my parchment sheet on top, and use my iron on very low heat, and just move it around over the surface of the napkin until it reactivates that Mod Podge and it causes your napkin to adhere to the pizza pan or whatever your surface may be. And then I'm just going to go in with this never-ending tube of E6000. I don't even know where I got this big, huge thing, but I'm still trying to use it up. But anyway, it's so thick and goopy, I'm just going to dot it all the way around the pizza pan, and then I've got a popsicle stick over there. I'm going to go back and then just spread it out with that popsicle stick. Now, you can certainly use hot glue. I'm going to use a little bit of hot glue for immediate hold, but I was afraid that this tile might pop off with just using hot glue because I do like to store my projects out in my shed when the season's over with, so I did want it to hold up until next year because I love to reuse my projects from year to year, or sometimes I will give them away or donate them, and I want to make sure they're not going to fall apart. I'm going to make sure that this tile is centered up as best I can because I want to get as much of my snowman's face in the center of this opening as possible, and then when I put the hot glue, I'm just pressing down to make sure that it's going to stay in place. To give our sign a more polished, finished look, I'm going to hot glue some of this decorative trim, and I think this came from Walmart. I've had it for so long, y'all, I don't really remember, but I think Walmart. But anyway, just using a little bit of hot glue, I'm just going to continue to add it in all the way around the inside of the pan. Now, to finish off this and to keep my decorative trim from fraying, I like to take a piece of tape and wrap it around my trim or rope before I cut it, and then I just add a little tiny bit of glue to the end and then just tap it down to where it will meet the other piece and just hold everything in place perfectly. We're going to make a quick and easy bow, and I'm going to be using ribbon that came from the Dollar Tree, and the two that's on the table came from Walmart. And I'm just adding a little bit of hot glue to the end and then just tapping very gently to keep it from seeping through too much. Don't burn your fingers. And it's just a simple way to make a bow, and I'm going to do that to all 3 strips. I've cut 3 tails to match each of the loops, and I'm just going to pinch it in the center, and then I'm going to use my Easy Bow Maker to just hold my ribbon in place as I'm layering it. Quick tip or trick to use if you have trouble holding multiple pieces of ribbon, which I do, and just making sure that everything's even, but I will go back and trim this up way too long. Anyway, I'm just going to do the exact same thing with the loop, pinch it in the center, but I'm going to crisscross it with the tail, and then I'll do the exact same thing with the red ribbon. Now, I do switch it up just a bit before I add the green and red ribbon. I thought it was just too much red. So I had some green mesh ribbon from the Dollar Tree left over from spring and summer, and I decided to add that in. I've just cut 2 tails. I'm just going to do the exact same thing, pinch it in the center, place it on top of the red loop, and then I'll come back and add my green and red ribbon on top of that. And then for the top, I'll add in one more tail of the green mesh ribbon, and then I'm going to take my last strip and then just kind of pinch it in the center and make a loop and just place that on the very top. And then I'll just cinch everything into place with my zip tie. And then you're going to want to fluff, fluff, fluff. And when you think you can't fluff no more, fluff your bow just a little bit more. And I did trim the tails down significantly, as you can tell. And I'm just going to use a little bit of hot glue and pop it right into place. I love how they turned out. I think the over-the-top bow is just perfect, in my opinion anyway. I love big bows. But anyway, I love the bow and I love my sign. But as I was editing, I realized that I really did cover up some of the gold a little too much, and it just kind of washed out that tile and just kind of was blah. So I did go back in off camera, as you can see right here, and I added in some more of the gold, and I really concentrated around the snowman, the opening there, just to frame it, make it pop a little bit more. And I also popped in a gold bell, which is from the Dollar Tree, right in the center of that green mesh, just to break that up a little bit and to give it a little bit of extra bump in color. I left this as a shelf sitter. You can certainly hang it and make it a sign, which I will probably go back and do later. I'm not quite sure yet, but I'm loving it right now as a shelf sitter. But I love this. I would love to know what your thoughts are about this. Should I have just left it with the gold toned down, or do you like it with me adding in the gold again? We're going to recycle this window frame I created using 4 picture frames from the Dollar Tree several years ago, and I just glued them together with hot glue and E6000, and then I reinforced them on the back with some large popsicle sticks. And as you can see, it was spray painted brown, and then I just distressed it with a little bit of white paint from Waverly. And we're going to be adding some florals to the corner of the picture frame, and I've just cut down a small piece of floral foam, and I'm just going to go ahead and hot glue that to the upper corner. We're going to be using a variety of greenery. Some of it came from Amazon and some of it came from the Dollar Tree. The greenery from Amazon, I'll link it down in the description box for you. I'm also going to be using a variety of textures and colors of greenery, because to me it makes your project look more high-end and it just gives it more depth when you use a variety of colors and textures. But of course, use whatever you have on hand. Don't feel that you have to go out and buy a variety of greenery. Just pull from your stash and make it work. But anywho, I'm just kind of bending and adjusting the greenery as I'm inserting it into the floral foam, because I want it to curve along the edge of the frame. And then I'm just going to continue to build a good base of this. I believe it's called Cedar Picks, y'all. I can't remember off the top of my head. If it's not, I'll put it here on the screen when I'm editing back. We're going to add some pine cones to the project, and I want them to look like they're covered in snow. So to achieve that, I'm just using an old paintbrush and some white paint from Waverly, and I'm just going to gently dab around over each of the pine cones until they look like they're covered in snow. As you can see, I've already added greenery to the bottom of the frame, and then I'm just going to hot glue those pine cones right on top of that greenery and just kind of hold them in place until that glue has time to set up. We're going to make a really quick and simple bow to go in the center of the greenery in the top corner of the frame. And this gorgeous ribbon came from Hobby Lobby. Picked it up last year during the holidays. This project was actually made last year before the holidays, just didn't have time to get it edited and out before Christmas DIYs went away. So y'all know how that works in the land of crafting. But anywho, I believe my loops were about 5.5-ish 4 and 3, something like that. It doesn't have to be exact, whatever fits your project. You just make your loops the size that you want. I'm just checking to make sure my loops are fairly even on each side. Then I'm just going to cinch it in the center with a zip tie, and then I like to, before I pull it tight in the center, I like to adjust my bow or my loops on each side again, making sure they're even, and then I'll make any other adjustments that might be needed to the bow before I pull the zip tie really tight and snip off that tail. I'm going to use hot glue to attach the bow, and off camera I just wrapped another piece of the ribbon around the center of the bow just to cover up that zip tie. We've got a lot of greenery going on with this project, so to help break that up just a bit, I'm going to add in some of this white cedar. This is from the Dollar Tree. It's so pretty, but y'all, it is so messy. So just keep that in mind if you're going to work with this stuff. And it will also help to fill in any gaps or holes that might be left. And then once I have that in, I'm going to come back with some of these little bits and pieces of berries. It's just left over from other projects, and just add those around the bow, and I thought they were just so pretty and just complemented the red cardinals so much. And then I'll just repeat the exact same thing on the other end of the frame. We're going to add a sign to the center of the frame, and this came from Hobby Lobby last year. I believe I got it for 50% off. And anyway, I just gave it 2 coats of crimson from Waverly Chalk Paint. To attach the sign, I'm using E6000, but of course you can use whatever glue that you might have on hand. And then once I get my placement just right, I'm just going to press it down, and then to make sure it's going to stay in place while the glue sets up, I just put some books on top of it and let it set overnight. Oh my goodness, y'all, I just love this. It's just such a beautiful rustic statement piece, and it's a great way to upcycle some of your old projects or decor that might not be to your taste anymore, or just sitting there collecting dust. It was so easy to make, and if berries and pine cones and cardinals are not your style, swap it out for whatever your taste is, your colors are, and make it your own. That's what I always tell you. I just hope to give you ideas and to inspire you, but I am in love with this, y'all. This is not something I'm going to give away. This is going to be mine. We're going to be creating a double-sided ornament using this wooden piece from Michael's. I bought it last year. They had it 90% off. It was a little dinged up, had a chunk missing out of it. Gave it a good sanding down, and then 2 coats of Waverly's chalk paint in the color Snow White. Next, I'm going to use the color Antique Gold from Folk Art, and I'm going to paint around the outside of the ornament, and then once that's dry, I'm going to tape it off and then paint the top as well. I've already added a layer of Mod Podge to both sides of the ornament and let that dry, because we are going to be decoupaging both sides. This is one of the most beautiful napkins that I have ever used. I absolutely love this, but I do want to show you that it is 3-ply, so you do want to check your napkins and make sure that you remove all the plies. Some of them are 2, some of them are 3, because if you don't remove those, it's not going to stick to your surface when you start to decoupage it. And I'm just lining it up there as best I can. I want a good crisp line across the top, so I'm going to use just the tip of my iron and tap, tap, tap to reactivate that Mod Podge so it'll stick and not move around while I place my parchment sheet on top. And I'm just placing that on top to protect my napkin. My iron's on low heat, and we're using the heat from the iron to reactivate that Mod Podge, and y'all, it gives you a perfect finish. I would say 99.9% of the time, which is almost perfect. Then I'm just going to hit it with my nail file and remove that excess napkin. For the other side of the ornament, I created an image in Canva, and I just printed it on a sheet of tissue paper, just like you'd put into a gift bag. I wrapped it around a piece of printing paper. The key here is to tape it down really, really well so it will not jam up your printer. I just have a plain old inkjet printer, nothing fancy, printed it out. This is one of my favorite things to do. To remove the excess tissue, I'm going to use a small paintbrush and water. I'm just going to lightly run it along the edges of my image and then just gently tear that excess tissue away. And I'll just keep tearing it away until I get the shape that I want. I love this method. To me, the uneven and organic edges give your project a much more natural appearance. I'm going to use the heat method to attach the tissue on this side just like I did on the other side. And then I took the ornament outside and I used spray Mod Podge on both sides. Next, we're going to add some embellishments to each side of the ornaments. We're going to do each side a little differently. On the side of the angel, I'm just going to pop in some of this little sweet greenery, and this is from a pick, I believe, from Walmart. And then right in the center to cover up some of that hot glue. I'm not sure what this little piece is called. It was in a bag of pine cones and things from the Dollar Tree, but I'm just going to pop that right in the center. I felt that it needed a little bit of color, so I'm just going to add in a little bit of this red pit berry on each side with the greenery, and mine came from the Dollar Tree. We're going to keep the other side of the ornament pretty simple. I'm just making a little messy bow with some ribbon from the Dollar Tree and Walmart. And then I'm just going to tie it right in the center with some of this little tiny gold ribbon. And this is the last of it. I love this stuff. I cannot remember where I got it from, but I want to get some more. I love this for bows like this. But anyway, I'm just tying a little knot there, and then I'm just going to snip off those ends and fluff it out a bit, and using some hot glue, pop it right at the top of the ornament, and that's it for this side. I think just simple and beautiful and so elegant. I just love this. I love how the gold ribbon peeks out from the other side of the ornament. From this side, it looks like angel wings, and it just makes it so much more special. This was truly so easy to make, and it really was very inexpensive. We're going to start this project by giving each of our papier-mâché letters 2 coats of Waverly's chalk paint in the color white. And my letters came from Michael's, but I'm sure you can pick them up at Hobby Lobby or even order them from Amazon. This project is actually a dupe of something I saw on QVC. They were part of the Valerie Parhill collection. If you know anything about her, she has amazing Christmas pieces. They're a little on the pricey side. I actually have a few pieces. But when I saw this, I was like, oh my goodness, I think I can remake this. I had a coupon from Michael, so I got all 3 of these paper mache letters for about $10 or a little less. Scrapbook paper I'm going to be using, I had it on hand, but it actually did come from Hobby Lobby. But I had it on hand from the previous year. So I'm like, I can make this, but I'm going to insert a picture at the end, and you're going to have to tell me if I got close. You do want to make sure your paint is completely dry before you decoupage the scrapbook paper. I'm just adding a very generous layer of Mod Podge before I place the scrapbook paper, and then I'm just using my hands to smooth it out. You can always use a brayer or plastic wrap. I like to use both. But for this, because the paper is so thick, I'm just using my hands and it works just fine. Just line it up and just smooth it out, making sure you're getting any air bubbles or any excess Mod Podge that might be up under there. I set it aside for a few hours and let it dry completely, and then I just used sandpaper and a nail file to remove the excess scrapbook paper. Now you can absolutely stop at this point. They are so pretty just as they are. But because I'm duping the pieces from QVC and each of the letters were outlined in half beads, we're going to continue on. Now I am duping those pieces and I'm trying to keep it within a certain price point. I'm going to use these self-adhesive beads from the Dollar Tree. Now they are quite shiny. So I'm going to use some white chalk paint just to take that shine down, and then I'm also going to brush over the beads with some antiquing wax to give it that distressed look that the pieces have on QVC. And then once I get the antiquing wax down, I am going to come back with the baby wipe and just wipe away that excess. Now these beads do have a sticky residue on the back, but I didn't want to rely on that alone, so I'm using Mod Podge on top of the scrapbook paper just to make sure that these beads are going to stay. And these beads are very small, so it can get a little bit tedious when hard. So I just worked in small sections, used my tweezers and little tiny scissors. Those are your friends with this project like this. Or if you're not on a budget like I am, or trying to keep it under a certain dollar amount, you can use larger half wooden beads and it goes a lot faster. Once all the beads are in place, I do go back over each of the letters with another layer of Mod Podge right on top of those beads just to make sure that everything is sealed down and they're not going to pop up. And the three pieces from QVC were very heavily distressed. Now, I didn't want mine that distressed, so I'm just very lightly dry brushing over it with some white paint and just using a soft cloth and wiping it back. And as you can see here on the screen, these are the pieces from QVC, but I love how mine turned out. They're not exactly like them, they're pretty close, but I'd like to know what you think. Did I come close to duping them? Thank you for spending a part of your day with me. I truly appreciate it. I hope I have inspired you with some of my favorite Christmas DIYs. Have you started your Christmas crafting yet? Or when do you start? Let me know down below, and I will see you soon, my friends.